Good morning, everyone. How are we all doing on this lovely Thursday morning, just ahead of Easter? I'm just going to center my camera a little bit. Oh, which way? Which way? There you go. Oh. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we all had a good game week. I think most of us did who played the bench boost. Lots of big scores out there. You can see that I'm on a green arrow as well, which makes a change. Went up about 160,000 places. Something like that. So a good game week for me. One of those ones where if you kind of attack the double game week, you probably got rewarded. Double Chelsea defence doing well in the second game. United coming through against Brentford in that game as well. The likes of the Arsenal players not doing kind of incredibly well. So if you shipped out their defenders or Saka and bought in basically anyone but James Maddison, you probably did all right. Ollie Watkins with a huge score as well. Brighton players all kind of returning. Again, it was a good week, I think, for a lot of people. And, you know, bench boost scores of around 20. I think if you're getting 20 on your bench boost, you're going to be really happy with that. So we're going to talk a bit about how my team got on in that week. It's nice to be talking about a green for a change. We're going to be talking a bit about my team, how I'm set up for Game Week 30. And as the title of this video and podcast suggests, I am hovering over the wildcard button. I'm not locked in to it. In fact, it's kind of dwindling a little bit because it looked like McAllister and Casado might have a few injuries. That was allayed by Brighton Twitter account, which was a new one, saying they'd be fine for the weekend. I haven't got Saka, but Liverpool put in a decent defensive performance against Chelsea and they're at home. So do I need to move back for him? I can get Haaland for free. So it would just be kind of peppering my team with a couple of differentials and setting myself up for Game Week 34. So we'll talk about that anyway, kind of the logic behind that and whether I do it this week or whether I wait for a couple of weeks, potentially into Game Week 33. That's the kind of decision I've got to make, but it's quite nice to have the wild card available. And, you know, I think there are some players emerging now that a few people might not be able to move to quite as easily without the chip. So that should be interesting. Hi to everyone in the chat. Pakoda Lassen, did you captain Maddison? No, God, I know. I talked about it on Black Box. I talked about bringing in Maddison for a hit for Saka, and that didn't feel great. And then the flip side of that was I'd be taking the captaincy off McAllister and giving it to him because I thought Leicester had a really nice double and it looked really good. In the end, I did do the hit for Maddison and bring my team up, but I didn't captain him. I left the captaincy on McAllister. And the hit, I mean, how can you take out a player who's benched, bring in like the key attacking player for a team with, you know, good fixtures in 2 games in a double game week, and the hit doesn't pay off? I mean, Saka got 1 point, Maddison got 4. I'd have been better off keeping Saka. You know, Maddison, he went off holding his leg. We think it's probably cramp. It's a home game against Bournemouth. The temptation is to keep him for that. Again, I think if he's fit, the wildcard might end up being delayed a little bit. But there he is in my team. I'm hoping that he can outscore Saka by 1 point. I mean, he's 1 point behind him with that hit going into a home game against Bournemouth. But you know, the way Arsenal are playing, it's difficult to back against Saka in that. But you know, I'd like to give it one more week if I can, because that move was designed with these 2 games in mind. I just thought Maddison would get something. I thought he'd get something in one of those 2 games. I thought they'd beat Palace. You know, I know Hodgson came back, but I didn't think that would have the kind of impact that it did have. And Palace looked good and full of threat, and Leicester, you know, couldn't really deal with them. And they got that last minute winner from Mateta. So Leicester are in big trouble at the moment. And I think once this Bournemouth game's over, that's it for them, probably this season. They haven't had a huge amount of options. Anyway, it's only really been Maddison Ward for a little bit. We're not going to be touching the defence. A couple of people went for Barnes. You know, I got some attacking returns from him, which was good. Now, you know, Vardy's back and up top. They're just a bit of a no-go. So I think my beloved Maddison will be out of the equation after this week. But yeah, elsewhere, defence did really well. Double Chelsea, double Newcastle, Trippier and Botman. Kepa and Chilwell. I was debating moving Zinchenko to Zuma for a hit. Kind of wish I'd done that now. I think I got put off by the fact it would have been for a -8, but obviously, like I say on these, you've got to look at these hits in isolation. Would Zinchenko to Zuma have been worth a -4 in isolation, given that West Ham had the 2 games? Probably, but easy of hindsight. I thought Arsenal would keep a clean sheet against Leeds. I thought West Ham would probably keep one clean sheet in those 2 games, and they did. But then Zuma obviously got the goal. He doesn't get the goal, and then that hit isn't really worth it. So can't beat myself up too much about that. Salah with 7, yeah, disappointing. I mean, obviously he got the goal against City early. I thought it might end up being a good double game week for him, but then City just absolutely destroyed them, and then didn't start in the second game, which I was not expecting. All the changes that Klopp made in that. I mean, it's a bit of a concern ahead of the double game week in 34. If Klopp is willing just to kind of completely decimate the entire team, like he did. I mean, he must have been really unhappy with that Man City performance. I imagine we're going to see the majority of the big guns coming back in, because it was another disjointed performance from them. Not surprising, given that they barely played to each other. They players like Milner and Simicast, in the side. No Van Dijk, no Fabinho, no Thiago, no Salah. It was always going to be hard for them to create lots of chances against Chelsea. But it'd be interesting to know what Klopp's plan is kind of going forward, and that is why, again, delaying the wild card for a little bit longer might just give us a little bit more information about what Klopp's plans are. So I'm already talking myself out of the wild card. It's all clickbait, these titles, isn't it? Rashford with 12, one of those ones where he's in your team, but you don't really want him to do that well. And obviously scored the goal against Brentford. I thought they would struggle more than they did in that match, but it didn't really look like Brentford put up too much of a fight. Had a couple of chances. Shaw going off injured was not good for him. Pretty good for my fantasy team, given that so many people had invested in the defence. I'm so glad I didn't go near Bruno Fernandes. I mean, again, per go to lessons, so my instinct came good. I just, when like everyone's buying a player and you're just really, really not feeling it. I just really had that about Fernandes, this week. I just don't really like what I'm seeing from him. I don't particularly like what I'm seeing from United in general in quite a few games. That Newcastle game was really, really poor, I thought, from them. And, it's that home Old Trafford form that's really going to see them through. So, home game against Everton next. Everton played really, really well against Spurs. I thought they pressed absolutely brilliantly in that game. I was expecting more of that from Brentford. So, we'll see how United deal with that. Sure, owners are going to be sweating a bit on his fitness. I think if you've got De Gea, he's probably the goalkeeper to go for between now and the end of the season, especially given that Lampard looks like he's coming back for Chelsea. And you know what his thoughts are on Kepa. He was the one that bought Mendy and replaced him. So, yeah, we'll have to kind of wait and see on that. And that's one of the advantages of the wild, because I can move for some of those players. And Mr. Grealish as well, Mr. Jack Grealish, who I think is finally starting to really look the part in the City shirt. It's 11 goal contributions for him in the Premier League this season. I think he can go on and get 20, given that he seems to have cemented that left wing spot down. If he's going to get 20, I think he's going to be a really potentially big player for us in the league. So he's someone that I'm really looking for, looking to get in. Again, one of my favourite players in the league. Brighton mid's doing well. McAllister and Matoma. 9 for McAllister, captained him. Matoma 14. He was the one again to go for. Lowest stats out of the 3 mids, but scoring the most points. That's just a theme that we're seeing from Matoma. He just finds a way to claw his way to big scores. He's an easy hold for me. The others, I think, given Brighton's fixtures, given that blank, I know they've got good fixtures to come, but I think we could potentially be looking to drop one with McAllister or March. And keeping Matoma. I think you've got the Brighton defenders. They're fine. You can just bench those. Estepinian. Steele is looking really good. Assists in the first game. A couple of really key saves in the second. His place is secure. I'd wager until the end of the season, unless he does something really, really poor. The assist just shows the kind of reason why he's in the team. His distribution is a lot better than Sanchez's. His shot stopping's been questioned, and he's made some key saves for us. So I can't see any reason why De Zerbi would drop him now. 10 points as well. Who's the keeper that I bought in I was looking at a few different ones, and I think he outscored the likes of De Gea and who else was I looking at? I was looking at bloody Nottingham Forest goalkeeper as well, given those fixtures were good, Navas. But yeah, glad I didn't go down there. So yeah, still was a good transfer in. And then Henry with just 3, Zinchenko with 2, and Kane with 7. So looking at 21 points on the bench boost, 22 points. Good score. Really happy with that. 145 points overall. Decent. We'll take it. On to the next game week. So what is the next game week? The next game week is a game week 30. This is how I'm currently shaped up with no hits, with Kepa on goal and Chilwell. Double Chelsea defence. Not feeling completely confident about that. Lots of unsettled, players. I mean, they played well against Liverpool. Should have won that game. A couple of disallowed goals. Liverpool obviously struggling to create chances. I'm just not sure about the double up, especially with Lampard coming in as well. I think I want to keep Chilwell, but Kepa, although he's done really, really well for me this season, is someone that I could potentially look to lose. Trippier and Henry, not entirely happy with Henry. He's been poor actually since I bought him. Just the one clean sheet. But it's Zinchenko on the bench. Away at Liverpool, I think Liverpool got a great record playing Arsenal at Anfield. And Botman away at Brentford. I think Brentford probably scored in that game as well. So I'm not really happy with that third defensive spot. Elsewhere, it's looking pretty decent though. Salah, Rashford, Maddison if he's fit with that home game against Bournemouth, and Matoma. No Saka in there, which is a bit of a concern. But again, I think Liverpool at home are a completely different beast than they are away. So I can probably get away with that this week. And then up top, it's Kane, Watkins, and Tony. So that would mean benching McAllister and playing Matoma, I think. Given that we saw McAllister dropping deep quite a few times over the double game week. And I think Matoma is just in the form of his life. Such a good player, and I'll really back him to do something against Spurs. Big game for us and I can't believe I'm saying this, as we, target the top 4. We play Spurs, we play Newcastle, we play United before the end of the season. It's not completely inconceivable that we might do it, especially given United's away form. But that would be a ridiculous achievement. I think if we can get 5th or 6th, that would also be incredible as well. So current plan is Kane to Haaland. I got 2.2 million in the bank. I know a lot of people are doing the Tony to Haaland move. I can't afford to do that. He hasn't got the booking, so I could give him one more week. So that'd be Kane to Haaland for free. That means no Saka. That means keeping Henry and playing him. It means keeping Tony. Newcastle obviously playing really well as well, and it means keeping Kepa. So there'd be some of the players that I'd look to move out. And like we'll talk about in the wildcard in a sec, there's a couple of sort of interesting moves that I could make with that chip. So we'll come to that in just a second. Let's go over to the watch list first. So we've got Chilwell right at the top. Now, in terms of non-penalty XGI per 90, he has overtaken Trippier. So Trippier's finally lost his place at the top of these standings. It's Zinchenko next, 0.2. Rinko Henry, 0.18. I mean, like I say every week, a lot of defenders on the watch list are not putting in kind of great attacking stats. So Chilwell and Trippier kind of at 0.3. Mark is okay for a defender, but obviously we've seen them a lot higher. Robertson and Trent have set the bar so high in previous seasons. So, it's nice to see Chilwell so high up, though. I think, we really wanted that clean sheet from him. We would have liked to have seen some attacking returns. I mean, he got 1 point in 3 games, but here he is now, showing that his underlying stats are looking really good. So if you haven't got him, I'd be getting a bit worried about the fact that he's probably going to go off soon. So I'll be probably looking at ways to bring him in. I wouldn't be losing him over Kepa, for example. Some of the other players on here, Reece James. I put Van Dijk on there. I think given this double game week, 34 games coming up for Liverpool, and it's a good looking 2 home games for them. I think a Liverpool defender of some description looks decent. Van Dijk, or Robertson, or Trent. It's hard to know exactly which one the best is. I worry about rotation for Robertson and Trent. Given that we've seen the likes of Tsimikas come in, but Van Dijk, really, they can't afford to bench him in too many games. So he's probably the safest of the lot. Estepinian, really disappointed with his underlying numbers, but still probably the best route into the Brighton defence, other than Steele. And then you've got Botman. I've added John Stones as well, sort of playing in midfield. Absolutely no attacking threat since the restart. 0.04 in terms of him. But he's got that kind of flexible approach in the system where he can play at centre-back or he can play a bit further up the pitch as well. Playing really, really well too. So one of him or Ake, I think, is a decent shout. I like Stones. Always liked him, and I always liked him in double game week as well, which is coming up. So yeah, he's a real option. Then in midfield, De Bruyne is at the top. I mean, he is an intriguing option given the doubles coming up. His minutes have been a bit all over the place. Is there going to be some rest and rotation for him, sort of in and around the Champions League? But you can't argue with the stats. Can't argue with his performance against Liverpool as well. Really strong. So he is a temptation on the wildcard for someone a little bit different. But there are 3 other City players that I like the look of. Looking down the list, we've got March next, 0.64 since the restart. We know about his stats. We've got McAllister, 0.56, and Matoma, 0.46. So not a huge amount separating the 3 Brighton mids. I know the list is this way around. I would flip it around in terms of my own preference. I still think Matoma's the one. McAllister's a good, solid option, especially with the pens. March has got great stats, but I would still favour kind of the other 2. And like I said, I think I would be I'd be potentially looking to drop one Brighton mid if I was wildcarding, or maybe if I already had Haaland, or if I didn't want to get Haaland, who we will talk about in a second. I've added Grealish to this list as well. 0.56, 0.8 extra up 90 since the restart for him. That's higher than the likes of Odegaard, than the likes of Trossard, higher than the likes of Saka. Really, really good numbers for him, and finally starting to get those kind of returns. 66 points as well. That's the kind of the concern with him. I mean, you look at 66 points for Grealish since the restart, and you compare that to the likes of Fernandes 75, Odegaard 82, Saka 95, Matoma 87. He's not hitting those huge points hauls, but you're buying for the future and the potential, and I think the potential is there for him. And then up front, all eyes on Haaland. Is he someone we should be buying? We've seen training photos. He's back in training. You've got to still think he's a little bit of a doubt, given that he completely missed out that game, the weekend. I don't think we're going to get some good news from, some good positive news from Pep on Friday, saying, oh, he's fit and ready to go and he'll be in the starting lineup. I can't see that happening. Also, it's difficult when City playing so well, with Alvarez there. They completely blew Liverpool away. If there's any doubts around Haaland, do they need to bring him in for the game against the worst team in the league? And Haaland's away form hasn't been amazing either. So there's a few question marks around. I just think if he's fit and Pep kind of says that he's available for selection, I think Kane to Haaland still makes a lot of sense, especially given that Kane's got that Brighton game, which is tricky. And I think if you've got the money to do Tony to Haaland, you just do it and you just don't worry about that headache. If the update's a bit more vague, if it says he might need a bit more time, something like that, I think there might be a case for it. It's always risky to kind of, believe what Pep's saying a lot of the time. But it's a big gamble to go without Haaland for an away match against Southampton. And for peace of mind, it might just be worth just bringing him in, not trying to be too clever around that. But I can see why people might be looking to dodge him for a little bit longer as well. I was doing the off the bench Premier League pod with Andy, who talks about the buying games as well, being so close, and around that Leicester game at home. Does Haaland play all 3 games in a week? Does he have his minutes managed? But if you're going into Leicester at home without a fit Haaland, you're going to be very, very concerned given the way Leicester are playing. So for me, he's a buy, and I'll be buying him back this week, almost certainly. So this is the wildcard team that I put together. It's not perfect. There's probably a few things that can be changed here. This is the wrong one. Hang on. This is the game week 34. Not a game week 34 yet. Also, that's a spoiler for one of my other screens. Let me just fix that. on the fly, like I so often do on these streams. I think it should be this one. Is that it? No, that's not it either. Oh, it's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong. Wildcard 30. Is it that one? That's the one. There you go. Apologies. Yeah, so this is the team that I put together for Game Week 30. You can see it's De Gea in goal, who I mentioned is probably the keeper that I'll be buying if I was looking to get rid of Kepa, just given the amount of games that United have got. They've got 2 more doubles coming up as well. And this home game against Everton looks good as well. It's Trippier who would stay. It's Chilwell who would stay. And then I'd bring in John Stones. I'd probably keep Salah, keeps Rashford, keep Matoma, and bring in Grealish and Saka. And then bring in Haaland and keep Watkins. And then the bench would be different. It would be Ferguson, Zuma, and Van Dijk coming in ready for that 34 game. So it's about 6 or 7 changes to this team. I mean, it would be going hard on City. It would be going from 0 City to 3, bringing in Stones, Grealish, and Haaland. It would be bringing Saka back in. Obviously, this Liverpool game is a game that I feel like I could do without him for. But that West Ham game looks really good for him. I'd be very worried about not having him for that. And then it would be kind of switching, getting ready with Van Dijk on the bench. The issue with Ferguson and Steele is that if there is a goalkeeping change that is made, maybe Sanchez comes back in for some reason, because it's quite a few weeks until game 34, then he's locked in. That locks me out of a Brighton defender. Issues with Ferguson as well. Is he really the best, Brighton third asset to have, given that he only played 1 of the double game weeks, and Welbeck played well in that first game? He's going to have his minutes managed probably. It means I can't have one of the other mids, March and McAllister, who've been doing so well. So Ferguson might end up just being a kind of a placeholder. I could even go for like a Greenwood. It's just a non-playing player, and save that Brighton spot ready for 34 when I bring one back in as well. I mean, the kind of the good thing about this wildcard, for example, hopefully this will show up the right screen. Look at that, wrong screen again. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Sack me, Scout. There you go. That's the right one. So this is how the team would look in 34. It would be still with a double. Well, it basically it'd be 10 double gaming players without any transfers being made. And it looks pretty strong as well. So this is the kind of thing that I think a lot of people are going to be building towards. There are some decent double game weeks, but it's Liverpool, it's City, it's Brighton. They're the 3 teams that people are going to be targeting. You've then got United, but it's hard to know who to get in. You've got Rashford there. Shaw potentially. I mean, a lot of people are going to be sticking with Fernandes, but I'm just not entirely convinced that's the best way to go. It's probably going to be 2 United for me again in this one as well. So Villa are tricky, given that they've been playing so well under Emery. Brighton away is a tricky fixture as well. But I think a lot of people are still going to be buying United assets anyway. So I think this looks pretty good for game week 34. It would be nice to have a Nunez potentially in there. Triple up on Liverpool for those home games. I think if you're using the wild card, that's the kind of thing you need to be looking at. How you can maybe steal a march on people who haven't got that chip. People are going to be moving towards United, City, and Liverpool. They're the teams that I think people are going to be gravitating towards, because the Brighton players are going to be fully locked in. So I think the likes of Salah, the likes of Darwin might be hard for people to move. So that's the kind of the couple of considerations there. And then Grealish is in there just as a bit of a wild card, really. But I mean, you could go De Bruyne over Salah, for example. It's just trying to find a Liverpool attacker that's nailed. I still think Salah is the most likely to play both in that double game week. But I mean, you could take a punt on the likes of Gakpo, on Nunez. It's just all a bit up in the air. I mean, the advantage of waiting till 34, like I said, is we're going to have a few more team sheets from Klopp. We're going to see what he's going to be about. Was that just a completely one-off? Was that just a bit of a slap on the wrist to his first team, just to say, look, you need to step up your performances, and now they're all going to be reinstated? Are we going to see a 50-50? Was there impressive performances from some of those players that he likes, that he's going to keep in the team? It's hard to know. So that's the advantage of saving, just getting a bit more information. The advantage of going now is that I can triple up on that City for that Southampton game, which I really like the look of. I know what's happened here. It's linked the two just link the two screens to the same one. So yeah, we'll just ignore that. That's fine. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's where the wildcard is doing. David Toft says yawn. Yeah. I mean, you can see from the watch list though, it's, this watch list is built with the kind of, potential wildcard in mind. It's not a huge pool of players that we're choosing from still. It's nice to see people moving in different directions. People are getting Fernandes. The captaincy's being really interesting. People moving off the likes of Arsenal defenders and midfielders. Some sticking with them. Tony's is going to be keeping, selling. Those kind of decisions. But really, when you look at the full-on crop of players we can sort of realistically consider, there's not a huge amount really screaming to me. So I think any wildcard is going to be a little bit dull. But I think with Van Dijk in there, with Stones in there, with Grealish as well, there are a couple of players that you can kind of root for each week, which is what it's all about. Twissapelli Salika says that looks really good. Love the 34 team as thank you. It's nice to have some praise every once in a while. Just dad posting stuff, lol, random teams. Yeah, I know the one. I think one was like an old screen from ages ago. Not sure what happening there. David Toff says he's just missing quite a few differentials. Thanks, David. Yeah, that's nice. Mikael Paulson, hello everyone, 150 points and top 7k. Wow, that is a good morning. Absolutely excellent. Mike says he's thinking of benching Tony. Yeah, he's got a good record against teams in the kind of the top 6 this season. Tony's also got that kind of old club mentality that I like, going back, playing Newcastle, let him go, didn't really give him a chance. Can he sort of derail their Champions League bid? I like all that kind of story and narrative sort of going into a game. Not that it is always right, but the idea of Tony scoring, he's that kind of player that he kind of thrives off that kind of attention a little bit. I wouldn't be benching him this week if I had him. I'd definitely be playing him in that match. Any other questions or anything going into 30? Oh yeah, there's quite a few ones actually. Let me just switch this. Thoughts on Jesus, David Casel? Yeah, I do like the idea of him. I think his ownership is at 25%, but that shows the massive proportion of dead teams there are kind of out there, because he was about 70% at some point. I think with Arsenal's fixtures the way they are, I'd be happy just to have Saka, I think. So if you've got him, I don't think you need to be buying in other Arsenal players. The running's quite hard for them. Obviously, they're playing really well, but they haven't got the doubles. Are they really a team that you want to be targeting when there's teams like City and Liverpool and United with the double in 34? I also worry a bit, he's just come back from injury. They've been playing well without him. They've got Martinelli and Trossard sort of all vying for that position as well. I don't mind it. I don't mind the move. I just think there's other transfers I'd probably be prioritising. I like Grealish, for example. I think you want to be moving to Haaland as well. Maybe in defence, you want to sort some things out. If you've got all that sorted and you've got a spot for Jesus, then I don't mind it. And you think he's going to do well, go for it. Just not entirely for me. Like Ramsey, I like Stones, but his stats were surprising. Can I justify a Stones move? Yeah, you're not going to get any attacking returns from him, but I think he's probably the most secure route into the City back line now. So he's a bit like Botman, a bit more of an expensive Botman, but playing for a better side. I mean, they are a better side, but defensively, probably not too much between them. But yeah, I think the Stones. I think if you're going for a City defender, you go for Stones. I really like that move. Are you free hit for 32? Says John. Yep, definitely. That's one of the nice things, not having to worry about that blank at all, and just being able to ship those players out. I think we'll if you've still got the free hit, I think you'll see a lot of people on Scout on Twitter playing that chip and think that you're all building for the same team. But I think we're all going to see some pretty big rank rises that week, because there will be people who haven't free hitted or have used their free hit in 29, for example, or in that blank early in the season. So yeah, I think that's going to be a good week for us. There's some good options, I think, and we can be a bit different with it, and we'll be able to, there'll be lots of hits being taken from people with free hits and stuff. So that should be a really, really solid week. I'm looking forward to the 32 free hits as well. Final question. How can I not mention the mighty Vinicius, who's now going to be starting with Mitrovic out? Yeah, I don't mind it. He might be someone that I look to get instead of Ferguson, for example, just if I want like a playing forward. And I want to keep that Brighton spot open. It's hard to know how much you're going to be playing him, and they have maybe the worst double in history in 34 against Fulham and City, but it is a double. So, there's always a chance for goals. I mean, the question marks are, is he actually that good a player? I mean, he's filled in for Mitrovic before and not really kind of done an amazing job. He's got 2 goals this season as well. So I think he's all right. He's only 5.4 million, something like that. So he's a decent enough option, but I wouldn't get too excited about him as well. Right, that's it. I will call it there. That's half an hour. Thank you all for joining me. Let me know what you think about the Wildcard team in the comments and what your plans are for the upcoming game week. There will be a black box tonight if Mark isn't too stressed out. It is our 100th episode. We have hit 30,000 subscribers. Still got some way to go to catch Scout, of course, but it'd be great for you to join us there. I think it's going to be about 8 p.m. UK time tonight as well. So hopefully see you all there too. But yeah, thanks for joining me, and I will see you all next week.